Okay, we are live on YouTube. Vice Chair Rosenberg.
We'll call the meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee to order. Please give your attention to this short video that we play before each meeting.
Thank you. And Matt, do you happen to have that video pulled up? Thank you.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to first introduce to you Caitlin Stone. Caitlin is going to be our new administrative person who's going to take good care of our committee. So this is, I think, Caitlin, this is your first meeting?
There is. Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome to the group. And could you please conduct a roll call?
I would be happy to. And let me be the first to apologize for my toddler having a hard time with bedtime in the background. Hopefully she won't disturb us. Okay, so I would like to start with Member Ash.
Here.
Thank you. Member Bankert. Member Bankert. Okay. Member Bristow.
Here.
Thank you. Member Carr.
Present.
Thank you. Member Chahal.
Present.
And thank you. And I would like to welcome you, as this is also your first meeting, and welcome to CAC. And member of course. And Member Esquivel.
Here, present.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to also welcome Member Esquivel as her first meeting as well. We are excited to have you both. Member Hammond. Member Hammond. Okay. Member Hurley. Member Hurley. Okay. Member Linder. Member Linder. Okay, next. Member Moriarty.
Yeah,
Thank you. Am I saying your last name correctly, Member Moriarty?
that's exactly right. Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
good. Glad to hear it. Next is Member Powells. Member Powells. Okay, next we have Member Vega. And Member Vega. And last but certainly not least, Vice Chair Rosenberg.
Here.
Thank you. And we do have Chair Miller with an excused absence, just for the record. So we have the absence, we have a few members absent today. Member Bankert, Hammond, Hurley, Linder, Powells, Vega, and like I mentioned, Chair Miller has an excused absence.
Okay, before we continue on in the meeting, Sunny from Brentwood, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself as you join our committee? Just briefly.
Sure. My name is Sandeep Chahal. I go by Sunny. Been doing a business in Contra Costa County from, I will say, every single city, from Pinole to Brentwood to Pittsburgh and Antioch. And I'm going to be representing Brentwood resident in CCTA.
Good. Thank you. Rosa, could you just briefly give us a little thumbnail sketch of you, please?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rosenthal and Caitlin Stone. I'm Rosa Esquivel. I live in the town of El Cerrito, California. I've been here since 1999. I moved over to Northern California when I was a college student, studied engineering, and I do love the Bay Area. I've been very blessed to have a home in El Cerrito. It's a great place to live. I guess I get to see the issues with the corridor on the 80 corridor. So I'm excited to be a member of the community. I'm walking in El Cerrito right now. There's a very little traffic and it's nice to have a nice neighborhood. But you know, I'm excited to be a member of this board, and hopefully we make, you know, I love El Cerrito and I love the East Bay, and we hope to continually improve. So I'm in engineering, and you guys are competing with a book called Crime and Punishment. So, yeah. So
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to both of you. We're very happy to have you on the committee. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Caitlin, have we received any written public comment?
We have not, Vice Chair Rosenberg. And I did, when I was redoing the count, I realized we actually only have 7 voting members and our quorum is 8.
And Caitlin, that is fine. Both items tonight are information only, so the members can accept the items and provide comment, but we don't need to have a quorum to vote.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you clarifying.
Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please raise your hand and staff, or I will call upon you. Do I see anything? No. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the summary of actions from the October 27th, 2021 meeting and acknowledgement of, and let's see here. And the member attendance log. Does anybody see anything wrong with the, or should be corrected on the attendance log or on the meeting from last year? If not, we'll move on. Okay, thank you. The consent calendar, are there any changes, comments from the committee? Does anyone want to pull an item off of the consent calendar? Caitlin, have we received any written public comments?
Thank you for asking. No, we have not.
Okay. If anyone would like to speak from the public, please raise your hand. I suspect there's nobody. Do I have a motion and a second on adopting the consent calendar? Can I have a motion first, please?
I so move that we accept the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. And a second, please.
Are we able to vote on it?
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, we will.
This item you can't vote on. I apologize for not clarifying that.
We can.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And can we have a roll call, please?
We sure can. So as Matt mentioned, this is not there's no action being taken, but just for
Right.
the record, I will take down the votes.
Thanks,
But-
Caitlin.
Of course. So first we will start with Member Ash.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Bristow.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Carr.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Chahal.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Esquivel.
Yes, aye.
Thank you. I saw you nodding. I appreciate it. Thank you. Member Moriarty.
Approve.
Thank you. Excuse me, Vice Chair Rosenberg.
Aye.
Thank you.
Rosa, this is the first time I think we've ever had a member in motion somewhere. Where exactly are you?
I'm sorry, I'm over here by Calusa, like maybe I should take out my background. I'm so sorry. I work all day long and I sit all day long. Sorry. And so I'm trying to make it so that it's not too much motion. But yeah, it's beautiful Cerrito. It's over here by Calusa Avenue. Yeah, Calusa Avenue.
You ought to get on the Chamber of Commerce. You're good.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, we'll move on. Let's move on to the regular agenda items. First item on the agenda is an informational item presented by Sean Dugan from the East Bay Regional Park District to provide an overview of Measure J expenditures on the Contra Costa County Trail System. So Sean, if you are with us, I will turn it over to you.
I'm here. Thank you, Chair Rosenberg. Hi, everyone. My name's Sean Dugan. I'm the Trail Program Manager at the East Bay Regional Park District. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I am allowed. Thank you, Caitlin. Oh, and I should mention that Caitlin, I know Caitlin because she just left the Park District and we're sorry to see her go, but you're in good hands. So I hope I'm gonna meet the mark tonight. I think I know what you want to hear about, but of course we can have a discussion after this presentation. It's pretty quick, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. What you're looking at here, just celebratory picture here, is the Lone Tree Point segment of the San Francisco Bay Trail that was just completed in 2021. And this had $1 million of Measure J funding, pedestrian bicycle transportation funding, as have many projects along the shoreline that involve the San Francisco Bay Trail. And I'll show a map at the end and give an overview of the activities and investments that the Park District has made since 2015 along Western Contra Costa County. Spent a lot of time over there, a lot of money. And we're excited about some gap closures. So I will provide an overview of. I quickly scoured our data. We have some trail counters throughout the Park District, and we have about 40 or 50 of them of various types, and some are getting old, and some are being replaced. But they're at junctions, major junctions and entry points of our paved regional trail network in Contra Costa County. There's about 87 to 89 miles of existing paved trails in Contra Costa County. And there's actually about another 100 miles proposed, or about that same amount proposed. What those trail counters, we've experimented with them a little bit. We've started installing them in 2009, and we were using a cheaper version of a counter that is simply an infrared beam that shoots across the trail, and it captures a break in that beam. And so sometimes when people are walking in groups and things, it gets a little hiccupy. It undercounts traditionally, but we are getting trends, right? So these counters have been in place for quite some time. And then they're being replaced, or other counters are being purchased, made by, so those counters are called Trafix counters. Like I said, we have about 40 of those. Then there's a better version called Eco counters, and those actually are able to differentiate between bicyclists and pedestrians. So they're a lot more helpful. They're a lot more expensive, but they do transmit the data somewhat like a cell phone would to a satellite, and then we're able to analyze and capture the data. But there are some gaps in there. So we're in the middle of sort of updating this trail counter network, and we're always looking for ways to install more counters. This data we were requested this data during MTC Plan Bay Area, active transportation network planning, the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, of course. We share this data with them, and also like UC Berkeley is running a study on all the counters in both in the East Bay right now, and so we're providing them our data. So it'll be really interesting over time to see how these change. In general, trail use is going up, and even though we undercount slightly, it's still high, so it's going up. So what you're looking at here is we were able to grab 14 counters throughout Contra Costa County, a mix of Eco Counter and Traffics, and because these counters had the most data, the most consistent data count, I just wanted to show you what you already probably knew and heard, that during the pandemic, trail use exploded. People had more time on their hands, people were losing their minds. And of course, we know that healthy walks, as Rosa has shown us tonight, is necessary to, to our well-being and things. So from 2017 to February, for last month or 2 months ago, you can see the trends, and it has gone down quite a bit. The purple line is 2020. And as you can see, the average monthly was around 16,000 at around April or May, right when the pandemic hit. So interesting data. Then you have 2021 afterwards, showing a little bit more mellow of an increase, peaking around 12,000. And so it'll be interesting to see where this goes. You can see at the end of the 2020 December, it started to go back up again, and then it looks like, obviously you have your seasonal drops and things. But we're also able now to get data from crowdsourcing platforms such as Strava or AllTrails. And so we like to compare this. And again, this is limited to folks that are actually subscribed to these platforms like AllTrails and Strava. And it's also, the information sort of limited to what the user will actually share with us. So if we're lucky enough, we can start to break it down by gender, and there's other information in there. But what you're looking at is on the top here, between 2018 and 2022, is the yearly totals. And it goes from 2018 is on the right there till you see the 2022. And you can see that obviously the highest was in 2020. And then the monthly average upwards of in May and June and July during, in 2020 was close to 60,000 there. So that's really interesting. The great thing about Strava is you can actually see the route, and you can, I should mention these are bike trips. Sorry, I didn't say that. And you can get the user type. One thing that these counters lack that I'm always dying to have, and Strava has some of this, but the user would have to enter this in, is sort of trip purpose and origin and destination is you can glean it from there, but it's really helpful. And here's Strava running, walking, and hiking trips as they were claimed to be in there, and you can kind of see again that actually in 2021 is the highest peak there. At 870,000. So this is trips. It's not people, but if we collect this over time consistently, we see this trend. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the end on these. Again, I'm not a statistician, but I'll do my best. But I also wanted to talk to you about Measure J and the program 13 that is a great benefit to maintaining the trail facilities that are in Contra Costa County. And I should mention too that what my position at the Park District, I'm mainly the person that leads the development and construction of any project led by the Park District. I am not in the maintenance department or the operations department. And I do work very closely with our grants department, though, to acquire funding and then get projects completed and close gaps. But in this case, this is, whoops, wrong way. There's $30 million in the Measure J half-cent sales tax in what's called Program 13. And the language says that 1/3 of those funds are allocated to the East Bay Regional Park District over the 30 years of the measure. And that is to be spent equally in each transportation subregion. And so what we've decided to do, and let's see if I'm missing something here. And it's for development and rehabilitation of paved regional trails. We mainly use this funding year to year for maintaining pavement on these regional trails. As many of you are probably aware, we have a lot of access to capital funds for projects through from the government down. But when it comes to maintaining the trails, it's a lot more difficult to have a steady funding stream. And so this is extremely important for keeping our trails nice in Contra Costa. I'll go into some of the things that we do, but here's just a quick look. And again, I'm sure you all are aware of this, but for the record, I'll go through it. What we've decided to do, rather than spend money equally throughout all the subregions, we're hopscotching from each subregion each year, so that there's a little bit more of an investment in each subregion, and it winds up being around $500,000, about $500,000 per year. And so you see TransPlan on the right there in East Contra Costa County, and then in the center TransPAC, and then in the West Contra Costa in lighter green there is the Western Contra Costa Transportation Advisory Committee. And then you have SWAT, or Southwest area, and it's split up into on this map, but we treat it as one subregion as we work through the process. How the Park District does this is we'll go to the subregion technical advisory committee, and we will suggest a list of projects and discuss if there's any other projects that the committee or the technical advisory committee would like to see done. We hear a lot about tree roots, uplifting paved trails. Some of the trails out in East County, especially that are in flood control channels, are on levee roads, shift and move a lot and get cracks. And so it ranges from, overlay or crack sealing, slurry sealing, to removal and replacement. And as we go, I'll mention the next thing that we're going to do here in a second, but sometimes it's best to, even if it's newer pavement, to just give it an overlay and extend the life of the pavement. You could spend a little money now or a lot of money later. And so we're really using a pavement index called Street Saver, and it tracks the life of the pavement, and we get out on the ground, and our operations staff and identify projects throughout the county. And we don't always keep up, we're doing our best. Again, we spend a lot of our administrative money and our own general fund money on top of this money to match out there. And it's not so much the money, it's the personnel and the amount of work that we can actually do in 1 year. But again, this is it's a really good model, I think, and it's extremely important to keep maintaining these paved trails. As I mentioned, that we are evenly distributing that. This is from 2011, and I'm not sure why my data just goes back to 2011. This is what I was given by our grants department. But as you can see, in each subregion, we've spent close to $1 million. And I am sharing my screen, so it's hard to see my notes behind it. But we are still finishing some projects in Eastern Contra Costa. Our next plan, I think lastly, we were in Western Contra Costa, and our next plan is to go into TransPAC in Central Contra Costa. And as I mentioned before, we're going to do a quick slurry seal on the George Miller Trail, even though it's fairly new. This will extend the life of that project. And we're looking at doing some rehabilitation near Larkey Park and the Contra Costa Canal Trail and the Briones to Mount Diablo Trail junction there. And I should also mention here that, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, we've been spending a lot of time closing San Francisco Bay Trail gaps in Western Contra Costa County. Since 2015, we spend just about $50 million in, this is not just Park District funding, this is CCTA funding, this is Active Transportation Program funding from the state of California. This is Federal Highway Administration funding, transportation local match from the Park District, Measure WW and Measure AA. all kind and it's not just all projects by the Park District. There's a few that that were led by other jurisdictions. But I won't belabor each project or go into the details. But I did want to mention that I went the wrong way again. That the most recently on the first picture I showed you, the Lone Tree Point segment, it was about half a mile, about roughly 4.3 million. Has a nice bridge, as you can see in the picture. That was completed last year. And there's a little gap left in Hercules, and I know Hercules is working very hard to develop that intermodal transit station, which will include this last gap here. I've seen some recent renderings. It's going to be amazing, and it will close that gap. The largest gap, of course, is up north and along San Pablo Avenue. The county of Contra Costa has completed a study on that, a complete streets study, where the proposal really is to give that road a road diet and take away a lane and make it into the San Francisco Bay Trail, and that's 3 miles. So that would be a huge project, and we're looking forward to seeing how the county progresses with that. But I've circled in red down here one of the remaining 0.9 mile gaps that we're working on now. A study was completed in 2005 on the feasibility of this, but negotiations with the Union Pacific Railroad really have stalled it till 2016. We resolved those, and the railroad has agreed to allow us to build San Francisco Bay Trail within their railroad corridor on the outer 15 feet. And so right now we've hired BKF to complete the CEQA and preliminary engineering design and lay out the permits we need for this. Once this gap is closed, you'll be able to go roughly 30 miles continuously on the San Francisco Bay Trail from Lone Tree Point all the way down through Oakland, through Richmond and Oakland, and then to Treasure Island, basically. So it's a huge gap that I'd like to see completed in the next, I would be great if it was 5 years, but I won't, please don't hold me to that. But I just wanted to share that this is a comprehensive effort, and it's a group effort, and it's really exciting to see these come together. We think that not only is this going to be a benefit to Contra Costa County, but having a Bay Trail section that long really is considered a destination in our minds, and will attract visitors from outside of the area as well. So I think these investments are money well spent, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope this kind of helped out with what the Park District is doing maintenance-wise and development-wise. And I'll stop sharing my screen, but I can bring it back up. Just can't see you. There you are. And thanks for listening.
Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you. And let's open this up to the committee. I'm sure there'll be some questions or comments. So would somebody like to open things up?
I will. Sean, thank you very much. That was very informative. I live in the far East County and didn't know about this great trail that's hopefully going to be finished. We just had a meeting in Byron, and I'm sure you know where Byron is, and on our MAC, and we have a sign out there at the end of Armstrong Road, and it says that you people that own the property there, and it was kind of a stopping point for us with State Route 239. My question to you is, what do you plan to do with this property, as well as we love the biking trails, but we don't have them out in East County on Saturdays, Sundays, and lots of Fridays. You really don't want to drive on Camino Diablo, Pointed Timber, Bixler Road, because all the bike enthusiasts love to come out to what they call the back roads. So what are your plans and what's going to happen?
Well, please let me ask you a clarifying question. I'm not sure which property you're referring to. And you said Armstrong road
Right.
or path? I'm looking behind the scenes to make
Sure.
sure.
Let me give you a better description.
Sure.
It is on the east side of Vasco Road. If you are on
Right.
Vasco Road and you cross over Camino Diablo and you look
Mhm.
to the left about a mile down, you'll see the old Byron Hot Springs 4-story building. Just beyond that is your property. And that's where, so the property is really right between the old Byron Hot Springs and the airport. Does that help you?
I see. Yeah. Yeah. This property, I may have to get back to you on that,
Okay.
to the committee. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly of all of our plans out there with the land. I'm just a trails guy. But I do know that this area, I believe, is within the East Contra Costa Habitat Conservation Area. And so we are, that there's a lot of restrictions on the uses and things, and the lands were purchased as mitigation for removal and impacts to other habitats of similar value and type from development in East County. And so the resource agencies are very, very strict about what can and can't be done on this. But I think it will be a balance out there between, given the proposal for the new highway out there and things. I'm hoping there's a balance between active transportation and a new highway. And then we need to discuss, obviously, growth-inducing impacts of that, but also between conservation and that, right? So I will say that I'm hoping that the Park District takes a very balanced approach towards the development of these areas, but I'm not quite sure what the plans are, and I can maybe get back through the chair or through CCTA staff and hopefully answer your question as best I can.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Sean, I'm curious about something. Has the district pretty much identified all the locations that you want to put in the trail system?
Well, we have our master plan, but it's from 2013. We have lines, if you look at our master plan, it's quite graphic in nature. We don't show exactly where we plan on building trails. A lot of the trails on our master plan will require some form of property acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to keep it general so that we don't alarm property owners that, the government's coming, kind of, and that's because it's just, a lot of these are maybe not in my career or 30 years out, something like that. And so they're very pie in the sky, but there are other obvious gap closures where we just need money, and there's obstacles to overcome, which really involves bridges or some other form of engineering to get through, and money. Does that answer your question? I hope
it does. Thank you. Yes. Anyone else? Committee members, staff? Any questions?
I see. Rosa.
This is Rosa. I'm a CAC member. I have a suggestion. Thank you for the presentation. I am one of your clients, so not that I have an e-bike, things are expensive, but I hope to one day have that 100-mile trail. And for me, I know that I'm going to need a charging station. It doesn't have to be funded by the park. I think it makes sense if industrial person wants, somebody wants to make some money, putting a charging station in between these long trails would be helpful, because I think e-bikes only go up to like 30 miles or 50 miles on charge. And I know that if one day I get one of those, I'm going to run out of electricity. So that's just a suggestion for the future long-term plan. And when you rest, like on the bridge in Treasure Island, you can charge so you can get back. Going through the 100-mile trail, that would be nice.
Well, yeah, so the San Francisco Bay Trail will be about 30, but eventually I'm hoping there's 100. There's about 100 miles of paved trail in Contra Costa now, right? So yeah, no, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, because the only reason I don't do it is because I need to charge the bike.
And I'm hoping that the cost of e-bikes mean, it's obviously going to go down, I think, as more and more are out there, but we'll see.
We'll hope in 5 years.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got my own one.
Yeah, because gas isn't getting any cheaper right now.
Any other comments from the committee?
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Please.
So Jared Ash from Walnut Creek, you mentioned the Larky Park project. I don't need to tie up everybody's time here, but can you send us through staff? Can you send me the details about that? Because I'd like to share it with the transportation and parks, committees with the city. So that would be helpful. And if you send it to Caitlin or Matt, they'll forward me the information and I can share it. And then my questions were around the tracking on the trails that you're doing. Do you guys track people commuting on the trails versus like recreational? And what information do you have to that? And also particularly around people using the trails for BART.
There's great questions, and yes, I can get the proposal. I believe we've already submitted it, so I think the details are pretty clear. Some of the details are being developed on some of the projects. So let me just check, and but I'll work through staff to get you what I can at the committee. And we do struggle with determining the trip purpose, right? Commuting and things. We can kind of glean from the time of day that we see peaks and valleys in the trail counter log, what people are using the trails for. Trail obviously counters near BART. What you'll see when they're being used for commuting purposes is that obviously will peak during the commute hours. So between 6 and 8 in the morning, 7 and 9, something like that, and then in the evening. And so we do have counters out there that we know are tracking who's using commuters versus recreational. What you'll see on a recreational trail typically is you'll see a hump in the middle. So the middle of the day is when people take a break or they go out and they're on the Bay Trail or something, and they're in midday trying to recreate. But we don't have any way of really, with the trail counters that we're using, there's really no way to differentiate socioeconomic status, gender, trip purpose, origin, destination. We're just really logging trends right now. And I think that, maybe Strava and crowdsourced data mixed with the counter data can help with that. And then the only other method I could think of is intercept surveys and actually stopping people and doing physical counts and observations. But yeah, it's a great question, and it's exactly what we should all be thinking about. And we definitely don't have a perfect method of tracking exactly that. But
and as a follow-up to that, have you guys considered lights, or what is the obstacle for lights, particularly around like those commuter pathways to the BART, right? So if you look at the Contra Costa Canal Trail as an example, through parts of Concord, Walnut Creek, and Pleasant Hill, leading to the Pleasant Hill BART station. I know we did a survey in Walnut Creek a number of years ago, and the biggest obstacle to, people taking that biking or walking or electric biking to the BART was the winter and the nighttime. It's not that the weather isn't nice 97% of the time, which it is. It's that they don't feel safe at night when it's dark at 5 o'clock or 5:15 even. So I was just wondering what you guys have looked at for that.
yeah, I'm not sure you're going to like my answer. The challenge we have is with a lot of these trails is that we don't actually own the underlying land. We license it or have an easement over it from the county or the flood control district. And so any infrastructure under there that existed before we began operating a trail over it is somewhat of a hindrance sometimes. So you've got like high pressure gas lines, fiber optic lines, et cetera. The other concern that the park district is struggling with is that we don't really, if you look at our trail corridors, there's really minimal facilities. There's some trash cans, some gates, sometimes some benches, but a lot of the stuff gets destroyed or vandalized. And over time, we don't have the staff capacity to maintain lighting and things and landscaping, especially. So we are working with BART right now within a half a mile of like the Dublin Pleasanton BART station, which is not in Contra Costa, I realize, but you know, they want to put in some lights, but they're putting them in, and they're working with the underlying landowner, and then they're going to operate them, and that's how that's working. I do realize that the lighting is important, especially in the winter for commuting, and so it's something that I will dare say the Park District is ill-equipped for, and not a transportation agency in that way, right? But I'm hoping that I lost my train of thought here, but you asked what was the last part of your question, Jared? I'm sorry.
Lighting and providing access, you know, just to BART, or how, you know, so let me ask this, and Matt, you could weigh in too, is how can we all work together to identify a couple of these key routes? I mean, it's maybe what, 5, 6 particular trails and just a couple of miles to and from BART in particular, or transit hubs, where cities can come together, and in our case, like Walnut Creek or Pleasant Hill can come together with CCTA and East Bay Parks to address this, right? This will address a lot of other goals that everybody's sort of working towards. But I don't at least see from this perspective with this committee that ever comes together and people sit down and talk and figure that out. So I don't know if you guys have suggestions or ideas of how our group can be helpful.
And Sean, if you don't mind, I think our action plan process that we are kind of in the middle of right now, and you're going to get a presentation on in just a few minutes, is maybe a great forum for that, because it's where the subregions work together, develop a vision for transportation facilities, and then, you know, set up goals, you know, vision goals, metrics to measure, and then actions or projects to go along with that, how to implement the vision. So I think, you know, we're working with the local staffs, but that hasn't been raised by them at this point. So CCTA can certainly bring that up, and Tarina's in the room. We can have her jot that down for our next Central County meeting. But maybe we do need to get this local staff, the ear of the local staff, and have them get them on board, because if we can incorporate that into the action plan, the Central County action plan, that could be a real thing. That could be either a Central County, you know, program, you know, to, you know, light the Central County East Bay Regional Park paths, you know, and you know, there's potentially developer money that could help fund that. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that's going on right now, where we could incorporate that. But I think it's maybe a bigger conversation that the authority needs to have. And Colin is in the room as well, and I'm sure he's our active transportation planner, so I'm sure he's listening.
Any other comments from the committee?
Jared, I can talk to you more about that on next week.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
I will just that one add, sorry, through the chair, Rosenberg. I just was going to add that we are consistently looking for funding through grants, and safety improvements is really one of the big elements that the FHWA likes to fund and things. And those grants typically favor partnerships. And so we do reach out to we have 33 cities in our district, right? So we're always looking for ways to partner, and with a package with other projects and things, it really attracts that funding. So that's where the Park District can kind of hopefully swing some weight around. At least we have been successful at getting a lot of these grant funds. So I would just add that.
thank you. No, very good point. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. I know I've learned a lot, and I think you guys are doing a superb job with limited resources, as you kind of laid out for us. But we're all aware of how it incorporates into what we do here at the at the authority, and how it meshes with streets, roads, freeways, BART, the whole infrastructure. So thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome. I'll come back anytime. Thanks.
Thank you. Caitlin, have we received any written public comments?
We have not, excuse me, we have not received any written public comments.
If anyone would like to speak from the public, please raise your hand. I presume there's no one. The next item on the agenda is a status update from the authority staff and consultant Placeworks on the action plans for routes of regional significance and countywide transportation plan development. So I'll turn this over to you, Matt, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rosenberg. So as you may remember, I brought the action plan and countywide transportation plan update, kind of a summary of that effort back in, I believe it was September. That's when we were just putting our scope together. So I brought the scope to you. So our Placeworks team is going to provide you an update of where we're at now and focus on our public outreach program. But what I wanted to start off with was just remind the members who were here in September and those who have joined since then about what the action plans and the countywide plan are and how they fit into the CAC's roles and responsibilities as they relate to the growth management program. So one of the CAC's primary responsibilities is to look at is to make sure the local cities, all 20 jurisdictions, are in compliance with the growth management program. And one of the main components of the growth management program, besides, we've got the urban limit line and the model growth management element that each city must have. One of the main components is the requirement that all jurisdictions analyze the impacts of land use development on the transportation system. And the action plans and the growth management program are the mechanism for how that analysis occurs. So when a development goes in Concord that, that Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill are being looked at so that they aren't being adversely impacted. So all that goes on through the action plans and through the subregions. So it's having those action plans in place is a very important part of really making sure that that new developments don't adversely impact the important routes we have in our jurisdictions. And Tarina will talk about how we're not just looking at roadways, but we're looking at transit and those trail facilities for bike and peds that Sean just told us about. So we have 5 action plans. Tarina will get into this, but really updating the action plans leads to the update of the countywide transportation plan. They feed directly into that. That's a major effort of the authority over the next couple of years. So just wanted to remind you about that tie-in between this committee and the action plans. And so Tarina, I'm going to turn it over to Tarina, and she's being joined by Raul from Placeworks. They're our on-call planning consultant that John and Colin and I use for all of our major efforts. And so I'm going to turn it over to her to talk you through what we've done so far with the action plans and where we're going with our public outreach. Tarina?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And good evening, Chair Rosenberg and other committee members. I'm happy to be here this evening. As Matt mentioned, I work for Placeworks. My name's Tarina Wilson. I'm the project manager on the Placeworks side. And so I've got my finger on the pulse of each of the action plan updates that's happening right now and the different types of nuances that we've been working through with your tax and the input that we've been getting from the public so far. And then I'm joined today by Raul Tovar Gonzalez, who is a staff member at Placeworks. who is also working with me on all of these updates simultaneously. So we're excited to be able to give you an update tonight and let you know how you can help us a little bit moving forward with public outreach. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I want to do this one. I want to make sure that I share the actual presentation, not presenter view. All right, are we seeing the correct screen? Amazing.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thank you so much. So tonight we're going to be giving you a little bit of a project background now that we have the scope and work is underway, and give you an update on the public outreach component. This is our agenda today. It's going to be pretty simple, and I can take some time to answer any questions that you may have. Matt gave a little bit of background on the Measure J growth management program, so I won't go into too much detail here, but I'm certainly able to review any of these slides if we need to towards the end. This is just an image showing where the voter approved urban limit line lies. And then these are some, this is an example of existing routes of regional significance. So the action plans currently, they implement the Measure J growth management program, and they're meant to serve as a function where there's a cooperative planning process happening between all jurisdictions within the county. They're multi-jurisdictional, so each one is supposed to be working together and are actively working together to improve the transportation system. The action plan system, you know, the idea that there's one action plan for each sub area in the county allows for each sub area to look at the objectives that are going to help them meet their specific goals and needs in their specific communities. And these action plans are formulated through the RTPCs with input from local jurisdictions and obviously input from the local community through the outreach that we do. And in these plans, we set goals, objectives, and actions to mitigate impacts of growth on the transportation system, as Matt said. So that's the overarching goal of these plans. Right now, we are simultaneously updating all 5 action plans in the sub areas. Earlier, it was mentioned that there's the SWAT, Southwest Area Transportation sub area, and that is divided into 2. So that's why there are 5 action plans. We started updating those late last year. We're going to be doing that until probably around fall of this year. But before those action plans are complete, we're going to start updating the countywide transportation plan. So what's happened in the past is the countywide transportation plan gets adopted, and then the action plans get updated after that. But we are flipping that around this time around, and we're starting at the bottom. So we're starting with the sub areas. We're getting down to the nitty gritty of what each of these communities independently and holistically need to move forward. And we're going to be putting those into the action plans. And then once we have a clear idea of what all of that entails, we will be updating the countywide transportation plan. And that plan, again, it's going to start, the CTP itself will start a little bit later this year, and projected adoption would be around later 2023. And CCTA, with support from all of the jurisdictions in the county, have really expressed an interest in both the action plans and the CTP being very big and bold, and to really set your transportation system apart from what's happening in other areas of not only the Bay Area, but really of the entire state. And so, of course, we have to have a new emphasis on VMT since we're switching from LOS. VMT is vehicle miles traveled, but we're also focusing on multimodal transportation. We all know the importance of our biking, our walking, and our transit systems. But on top of that, there's non-modal topics that we're going to be focusing on in these plans, and that includes equity, safety, and climate change. It also includes technology, which on the last bullet the point that we mentioned the 2020 TEP is because the vision of the 2020 Transportation Expenditure Plan was to make sure that CCTA is focusing on innovation and new technology, that they're addressing the transportation system in a fully holistic and multimodal approach. And so on top of equity, safety, and climate change, these plans are also going to be addressing existing and new technologies. So they're expanding quite a bit, a lot of work ahead of us. So here's an overview of the action plans. They're going to include current and emerging transportation issues. They're going to include quantitative service objectives that we can really measure as we move forward over time to determine success. They will identify routes of regional significance. They're going to provide growth management program compliance metrics. So each sub area and each jurisdiction can know if they're actively in compliance with the GMP. And in the action plans right now, there's something called MTSOs. These are multimodal transportation service objectives. And these are the objectives that we use in the plan to help us formulate projects and programs to help maintain the transportation system. Now, because we're adding the 4 non-modal topics, which is the safety, technology, climate change, and equity, we're actually renaming these to regional transportation objectives, or RTOs. So as you see that acronym moving forward, that's the reason for the change. Here's just a brief project schedule. Right now, we're in the first portion of public outreach, which we launched earlier this month, and I'm going to be talking about in a moment. And we just finished up round 3 of meeting with your tax. We have a preliminary set of those RTOs, and we're working on modeling with our transportation subconsultants. And we'll be going to the tax again late April and early May to discuss the results of modeling and potential projects and programs. And I'll give you an overview of the public outreach that we're doing. We will be actively conducting public outreach throughout the entire project through adoption of the CTP. We launched our first round of public outreach on March 5th. So finally, a couple of months of work finally launched, and it felt really great. And we've been getting some really amazing input. As part of this round of outreach, we launched our project webpage, which has an online survey. We are doing 11 pop-ups and we'll be doing a total of 10 workshops, but right now we're just doing 5 workshops. There's going to be 1 in each sub area. And then there's going to be an extra workshop in the La Miranda area, which was a special request from that technical advisory committee. And then we're going to be doing we originally had planned to do 3 stakeholder workshops, but due to the really important work and the amount of value that stakeholders can add since they're on the ground doing work in your communities, we will be merging the stakeholder workshops with the oversight committee to have a stakeholder advisory committee that's going to help throughout the entire process of the project. So we've done quite a bit of outreach so far. We have done each of the pop-up events that is listed on this screen. Pop-up events are formulated so that they're pretty informal. So we bring, at these pop-ups, what we've been doing is bringing 4 large easels with large poster boards where members of the public can post comments on sticky notes. We'll have between 2 and 3 staff members who are there to pass out flyers, take surveys, answer any questions that possibly come up. And so far, I've been doing public outreach for 4 years now, maybe a little bit longer. And I've been really genuinely impressed with the amount of people who are actually stopping and engaging and providing really helpful and meaningful input. Obviously, the transportation system impacts all of us, and everybody has a stake and everybody has something to say. And it's been really great to hear directly from the community. So all of these events have been pretty successful, in my opinion. We do have a little bit more public outreach occurring through the rest of this month and next month. We only have 3 more pop-up events. Those are going to be occurring through Tuesday of next week. And then we are launching our series of public workshops. We have not had one yet, and the first one is going to be tomorrow evening. And like I said, each of these workshops are focused on one of the sub areas, but the workshops will be pretty identical, especially in the questions that we're asking in each of these workshops. So any member of the public can attend any of these workshops, just depending on what their schedule allows, and nobody's precluded from attending a workshop or a pop-up if they don't live in that specific area. And another thing that I'll note is that in all pop-ups, in all public workshops, and on the project webpage where we have the online survey, we're asking the same questions. And so we want to make sure that all of the outreach that we're doing in each location, and regardless the method, is all truly comprehensive and equitable. So how can you participate, and how can you as the CAC help us out, and how can you be involved? We have a project flyer that we definitely need to be distributed to your networks. This is something that we've been distributing to all jurisdictions, all RTPCs, all of our stakeholders. And we really need your help with helping us advertise the project webpage, the online survey, and these series of workshops so that we can get some more people RSVP'd and we can get input from as many possible sections of the community and the county as we can. And then I'll briefly go over next steps here. So as I said, we are working on modeling right now. So later in late April and in May, we're going to be going to the RTPC tax again. We're going to finish the public outreach later this spring, and we're going to synthesize the results. All of those results will be posted online. So you're going to get to see all of the input that we get over the entire round 1 of public outreach. And then in the summer, we will have the draft action plans for review by the technical advisory committees. And then we'll go back and we'll incorporate their comments, and we're going to begin update of the countywide transportation plan at the same time. So there's a lot of work that we're doing moving forward, but we're really excited to be in this process, and I'm really happy to have been able to give you this update. And I would love to answer any questions you may have. Don't think I have anything left.
Questions from the committee?
I just have one comment. To promote the events, I would just encourage you, like every city manager's office has a newsletter and a Facebook feed. And so if you just reached out to all of the cities, like to promote your upcoming workshops, like they could all just be posting it on their public Facebook. They can add it to their newsletter, and that will help increase your attendance. And that's probably like an hour's worth of work for you, just to look up everybody's like email address and number. And if you introduce yourself and saying you're the consultant to CTTA, like I got to imagine they'll add that, and they're happy to.
Certainly.
Oh, Tarina, is there some type of a financial component to all this when you get done with the work? Are you doing any estimates of what it would cost to do certain things that you conclude people would like to see?
That is not part of what we have scoped currently. So I'll defer to either John or Matt if they want to answer more specifically.
Hi, this is John Huang, Director of Planning for Contra Costa Transportation Authority. I'm going to do my best to sit in for Matt to answer this question.
Sure, thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Rosenberg. Ultimately, all this action planning effort at the local level, at the sub-region level, will fold up into a countywide transportation plan. and we'll be identifying projects, large and small, region-wide and local, project with local interest, and coming up with different scenarios. For instance, a constrained scenario, assuming we have an X amount of money to work with, an unconstrained scenario where we assume we have all the money in the world. And then there's a couple more scenarios too. So there will be a cost associated with all this effort here, but this is the core effort at the sub-region level that is a very important step for us. As Tarina mentioned, the schedule, once we wrap up this effort, then the countywide transportation plan will be undertaken next year, and hopefully we'll wrap everything up by December 23.
So, John, do you ultimately see going to the voters for the funding? Is that where we're really headed?
You said it, not me. Right now. Yes, that sounds like the logical steps after the countywide transportation plan. If there is a desire by the authority board to move forward with another ballot measure, certainly staff will consider that, and we'll develop a transportation expenditure plan to move forward with that. Now, you may or may not know the current Measure J does sunset 2034, which is about 12 years from now. So that's a very good question, and it's not up to me to address it, but it's certainly up to the board eventually when that does come up.
Some other questions from our committee members. You please go ahead.
Member Bristow, it looks like you're still muted.
Sorry. Yes, I see that you're coming out to Brentwood to our farmers market on Saturday, this coming Saturday. Does everybody know about this? What media or what way did you let people know that? I know there's always lots of people at the farmers market, so it was a very good choice of position to put a pop-up. But how else do people know about this?
Tarina, I'm going to hand this off to you because they've been doing a lot of outreach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. The nature of pop-ups is that they are not formally, like quote unquote, formally planned events. So a pop-up by nature is an event where we literally just pop up somewhere that we know a lot of people would be. And the usual intention of that is that not everybody participates in like civic processes like this. And so with pop-ups, we go places where we know people are going to be, and for lack of a better word, corner them to like try to give us some input. And of course, if somebody does not want to give input, we never force them to, but we do try to encourage them to take a survey so they can look at things online. We have all of the pop-up events published on our project webpage, and they are mentioned on our project flyer. So all of that information has been sent to every jurisdiction, and they've been advertising as much as they possibly can. But we do not require any reservation for a pop-up. Anybody who wants to participate is certainly able to. It's the workshops where we advertise in that more focused way, where we specifically ask that people then register to attend so they could, get the Zoom link, and we can host breakout rooms and things like that. And then there's a third component of the outreach, which is the online survey. So somebody who we don't engage with at a specific event, or who we do and either doesn't have time or wants to provide more input, can also take the online survey at any time.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that too. I think to member Ash's comment about contacting the city manager. Yes, we did reach out to all the cities and had them advertise it on their website and through Nextdoor or whatever media the city uses. So the city staff and then the city is aware that we're out there.
Patty, I think what you would like to do is put a big sign up somewhere that says 239. Call this number.
Have like a text they can send or something. Yeah, and I would like to add really quickly to John's point is that we have been really careful to make sure that each RTPC manager, their technical advisory committees, and their policy boards all have this flyer that I had posted a moment ago. They also have a social media ad that we created for CCTA, which CCTA has now published on, I believe, Twitter and Facebook. So we're sending those materials to all of these groups. Groups like Bike East Bay have posted it on their Twitter, but we are not having as much attention as we would hope. You know, this is a county-wide plan and you have 1.5 million community members. And so even though we're doing that portion, we do rely on, you know, our jurisdiction partners, our stakeholders, and groups like you to help us continually advertise. And so any network that you have, any friends or family, or if you work at an organization where you think it would be beneficial, then any blasting of materials you can do is massively helpful.
Well, Matt, keep us informed of this. This is very exciting and can lead to lots of things down the road, even though they may not be immediate. They're going to give us a direction. So thank you very much, Tarina and John. Matt, do you have any other things you'd like to, anything else you'd like to add to this?
Vice Chair Rosenberg, Matt had to leave the meeting, so that's why
okay.
I'm sitting in for Matt.
Well, do you have anything else you would like to?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
But thank you for your participation in this group and going through our presentation.
Oh, thank you, John. Thank you both. Very nice presentation. Gives us something to look forward to. And as I say, hopefully, as we move along in the committee, you'll be able to give us at certain key points an idea of what you're finding and how successful things are going. So thank you both. Tarina, thank you. And we will, Caitlin, have we received any written public comments?
Thank you for being so thoughtful to ask. No, we have not received any public comment. I appreciate you asking.
Well, would anybody like to speak from the public? We're doing that as it's a formality, but we have to do it. Next, let's move on to reports. Then this is the next item. Does anyone have a summary report of the authority board, planning committee, or administration and projects committee meetings that were held? If so, we'd always like to hear it. Sometimes there is a committee member, one of our committee members who does attend a meeting. In fact, in the past, we used to have one individual who attended all the meetings. Surprisingly enough, he was retired, but he was really anxious to attend the meetings and then to report to us. Well, then let's move on to CCAC member staff comments. Now moving to members and staff comments. Are there any comments from members or staff?
Vice Chair Rosenberg, I actually have a comment. You may have received an email from me earlier today, formally inviting you to our Redefining Mobility Summit. As CAC members, you get a discounted ticket, but also members of the public who are listening, we would encourage you to join us. So if you did not receive that email, please reach out to me and we would love to have you. Just to give a little blurb on it, I'm just going to read from the email I sent earlier. But so CCTA and our partners will be hosting our 7th annual Redefining Mobility Summit in San Ramon on April 5th. And a little bit about it, it is all about the innovative technology of tomorrow. So I would encourage you to look up redefiningmobility.org to find out more details about the speakers and the panels. And I would love for any of our CAC members to join us. And so we hope to see you there.
Any of the members in our meeting tonight, have they attended that function? Because at least I heard from some of the reports that we received back a few years ago that they really enjoyed it. They thought it was really special and educational. So just something to consider if you're interested in attending.
I did attend 2 years ago. It was the
Yes.
last event for COVID. And I remember specifically because during the event, they said nobody should be in a room with more than 10 people, came out from the health inspector. And I'm looking around and there was clearly more than 10 of us there at that moment. So just a snapshot in time, but it was prior to that, it was very informative and really did a good job of bringing in the private sector as well as the public sector of what's going on in transportation and innovation. And so I cannot attend because of the date, but I would encourage people if they can attend even for half the day to do so. And hopefully next year we'll have more advance notice.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
So Caitlin, with the discount, I'm definitely interested in taking advantage of that huge discount. But I think you wanted my credit card for $300. So I'll be following up with you, Caitlin. I'll send you emails and bugging you
Please-
of making
please-
sure.
Yeah, please do. I'm happy to help you with the ticketing process.
Any other member or staff comments at this point?
I will be
do.
joining that.
Please,
For sure.
yes. Please, go ahead, please.
Okay. Okay, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, Patty, can hear you.
Okay, well, I don't know if this is a report or a request, not sure which it is. But I did attend the Byron Mac meeting last night and we had a wonderful presentation by Francis Lowe, who is the State Route 239 project manager. And because State Route 239 will probably impact Byron more than any other community in Contra Costa County. And so we have been watching this very closely. The good news is they have finally determined a route that that seems acceptable to the MAC board. There's a couple little alternatives to it, but basically it will start as a 2-lane road, which we'll be happy with 2 lanes to start with. And the good news is there has always been a phase 1, 2, 3. And in the beginning phase, Camino Diablo Road and Basco Road was going to be phase 2. And it has been moved up to phase 1, which is a delight for all of us that this is going to happen. My request is there any way, Caitlin, that we could have an update on the finances and the possibilities of money that will be going to State Route 239, with the infrastructure plan from the federal government, just anything that would really, really help us. Francis, he gave such a great presentation. We didn't even ask about it. We were just so thrilled with his presentation. So, and I did promise them that I would ask if there is monies available for this project. I know, Larry, you kind of alluded to that at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Did they decide whether 205 or 580 was going to be the destination? Tracy
Yes.
versus, what was it?
Yes, it will include all 3 counties. See, that's the other big project about it. If we're going to be able to get monies from San Joaquin County and Alameda, because both counties will be involved. It's a huge, huge project.
Yeah.
I'm sure, John, you're aware of that project.
Yes, I am, Member Bristow. So, yeah, that's a request that I'll bring back to the project team, and certainly there's some there's costs associated with if they don't have numbers already. They can project some costs, and there are a lot of money coming down from the federal government, as you know, with the bills recently passed by the Congress. So, yeah, we can certainly bring back. I'll pass it on to the project team.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other, thanks, Patty. Are there any other future agenda items that the committee members would like to have discussed? Anybody from the public who would like to speak, please raise your hand. I don't think we have anybody. And is everybody aware of the next meeting we're having? This is going to be on April 27th, 2022 at 6 p.m. And if you do think of anything in the meantime, I think you can get a hold of the staff and they will carry it forward to the appropriate people. Otherwise, I want to just thank you all for being here tonight. I didn't realize we wouldn't have quite, I thought we'd have more people, but some cities, in fact, and jurisdictions have not appointed a person as yet. And we've run into this in the past. So if you know anybody who would be interested in another jurisdiction that is not here this evening, encourage them. Otherwise, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Oh, excuse me, Patty, go ahead.
I'm sorry, one last question. Some agencies are going to in person in April. Do we know that, Caitlin? Yes or no? Are we?
I'm happy to speak to that. I actually just was discussing this with Terry Ann Grover, our administrative director. So the board has to vote every 30 days, as you know, to extend virtual meetings per Contra Costa County guidelines. Unfortunately, our meetings are 35 days apart. So they'll be having a special meeting every 2 weeks to confirm for virtual meetings. What we do know so far is they anticipate to be going back to hybrid meetings potentially in May, but we don't know for sure past that point, just because of the legislature higher up the chain, as you know, the state legislature. So I can tell you that we will be having our next meeting virtually, but then after that, I will have to report back, and of course, I'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Yes, and it looks like Member Carr.
Yeah, I was going to say Danville had its first in-person meeting. It's a breath of fresh air. I would suggest that we at least consider a hybrid format that allows the best of both worlds. For those who want the face-to-face benefits, they can have them. For those who still need the virtual format, it's available to them also. So I'm glad to hear that we're looking towards face-to-face meetings for those who wish them. And I think as Member Bristow seems to feel, it would be a positive step forward to get back to that normalcy.
Well, Michael, I'll second that. I think that's a great idea from you and Patty. Otherwise, I think we've concluded the meeting tonight. I'm going to thank you all for being with us and look forward to seeing you next month.